This is a DeMarie Productions podcast.
I wish we had a wardrobe stylist.
I know.
The thing that stressed me out about this whole thing the most is what am I going to wear?
Well, yeah.
And I have to tell you, I've not really brought my A game.
I just fixed my
that.
shirt, but KP's okay with your hairy legs just hanging out here.
With the hairy legs.
I don't. It's so gross.
That is not gross.
It's
William,
gross.
take that back.
It's
I'm not gross.
No, you are not gross.
It's pride, homophobia. Rude. Rude. How was your...
I'm the alpha, by the way.
Okay. Wow, he heard that word and loved it real quick. How was your Father's Day?
It was very nice. It was very nice. I think Father's Day is the Valentine's Day of parental holidays, right? Like, who needs to say Happy Father's Day to a dad? It's the mom that needs celebration. It's not the dad.
No, I disagree. What about families that don't have a mom or don't have a dad?
Of course.
I'm into it. Listen, when I'm a dad, Father's Day better be lit. Like, I want
shocking
gifts on gifts on gifts on gifts.
Shocking. Birthday, any occasion to celebrate.
I do like a celebration.
Yeah, right. So
yeah, why not?
I don't know. Like, Abby's the hero in our home, not me. Right?
Well, that's lovely. I like that you think that.
Yeah.
But I think you're also just not giving yourself enough credit.
She also had a big week last week.
She had a huge week.
The Supreme Court case.
Let's talk about that.
Abby, last week, the Supreme Court case, the ruling came in like unanimous. Is it 9-0?
9-0.
Yeah.
Abby, your wife, who
Abby,
does
my wife,
what?
She's VP of Marketing and Operations for like a company that makes the abortion pill.
Yeah.
Mifepristone, which is all over the fucking news right now, right?
Yeah.
She's gotten personal accolades. It's like a 10-person company.
Huge. I mean, when I went over to your house, even then she was like on Zooms like months ago about like legal strategy of this case. Like, this has been such a huge part of her career.
We talked about it last week. Like, we went for coffee after dropping the kids at school, and we were like, this is like a career year for her. Like, you don't have years like this, you know, going to the Supreme Court, winning at the Supreme Court, at least for this piece of it, you know, all the shit in the news for politics on both sides and women's access to abortion and even just like life-saving healthcare. That's her thing.
Well, she's in the thick of it right now, but I am curious like how this will affect her career in the long run, because this seems like a huge resume builder.
I mean, for years and years and years, for as long as I've known her and longer, she hasn't even been able to like use her real name and publicize what she's done. And so it's not like you and I where we have a career and then one day you just do something that's pretty cool, but like you've been building up, like she's been in the shadows and then cast into
How is she
light.
doing with having more of a public role?
I think she's a little nervous about the exposure to like our family and for her personally. And
well, yeah, because people are crazy.
Yes. But I also think she's just like super, super proud of them and her. And you know, it's an ongoing fight. But the idea that you win one of the battles is pretty
huge.
fucking important.
And of all battles of all times, like this one was necessary.
Yeah,
you know?
And just the start of the necessary, right? Like total abortion ban and all that crazy fucking
Do you
shit
ever
that's
look at
going on.
Abby's career and be like, wow, I don't matter. Like,
Oh,
I
all
don't,
the time,
like
all
the
the
things
time.
that I do are for funsies and this isn't important.
At the height of my, or you know, peak times of my career, I've always said like, I do like advertising. I try to sell widgets to people creatively, right?
One time I was on a date with this doctor and low-key, I absolutely said boldly to his face, I was like, yeah, I mean, I think that what we do is like very similar. Like, we both save lives. I was so dead wrong.
Yeah.
He is like truly, he was like a pediatric surgeon. I was like, yeah. And art saves lives.
We're
too.
both saving lives, right? We're
What
both
am I doing?
No, I've always had maybe even too far the other way, like a sense of humility about that. Like, I know that what I do is for funsies, right? And I know what she does is like really important.
I've actually always appreciated that about you, because on set, when I'm like tense or stressed out, you'll be like, hey,
calm the fuck
it's
down.
just, you have a specific phrase that I can't say because it's, you know, specific. But I love it. And it's always like, oh yeah, that's right. We're all just here to have fun. Like, and, I mean, there's a goal and an objective, but we're having
it's perspective. When I'm working on, you know, like fucking feedback for some creative project, and I walk into our bedroom where Abby's working and she's doing like mock trial for Supreme Court, I'm like, all right, like I can put my shit back in the crayon box, you know?
Well, does that kind of calmness approach come with your experience? Speaking of experience, the episode of today's podcast.
Yeah, the value and experience.
The episode of today's podcast, the topic of today's podcast. Which is what?
The value and experience. And I think it does. I think for me, it comes from two places, and I won't belabor it, but like life experience, first of all, has taught me that like none of this fucking matters, right? The other thing is just that like I've been in this game long enough in like marketing and creative and adjacent, even as like a younger buck, to know that like, you know, this shit is like absolutely wiped clear of the earth in like 3 weeks
Right.
time, right?
I do think about that
stress
sometimes.
about, oh my God, but what should we lighten that cloud in the back? What if somebody picks up on this? And what if the contrast isn't right on that lime next to that? And then it's like on screen for a split second, you move on, nobody ever fucking sees it. So
for sure. But I think though, like in my career path, I've come across people who have a ton of experience and people who have had no experience or just starting out. I love talking and working with people who have an incredible amount of experience. When I'm looking at people to consider for hiring, I will take your experience over your education any day of the week.
You need those people. And I tried to be this person in my elder years, but it's like getting on a plane and looking at the pilot and like he or she, if they look cool, if they sound cool, like I'm good. I can go to sleep. I can read a book, whatever. But if they look like they're a little bit stressed or like, hey, looking out the window, like what the fuck is that thing? Like then I get nervous, right?
Yeah.
So you need that experience. You need the people on set. You need the people in office. You need the people that are coming out of a really tough meeting and being like, hey, don't fucking worry about that. Like, we're going to run this up again next week and it'll be a totally different result.
There are also times where I like have zero patience for lack of experience, where I'm like, how do you not know that that's what you're supposed to do when you're on set? Like, I lose my patience a little bit quicker, I think, than you have from what I've gleaned from our experiences on set.
It's close. Like it's even fucking close.
Okay. I've been told that like I run either really hot or really cold on set and I can switch between the two like nobody's business, which is fair. I take that criticism. But when you hire somebody with experience, you can just assume that they're going to be solution oriented, that they're going to not freak out or panic. Like that energy that I don't like having at all on the set usually stems from somebody who doesn't know what they're doing.
You're right. Absolutely. And we can talk about you in a minute because I do think that
I know.
Let's get back to me, right? I do think there's a certain amount of your experience that I want to come back to. But I think like not just being the coolest person in the room, calmest person in the room and all that shit. I think it's all like the value and experience is also knowing how to elevate others who don't yet have an experience, how to put somebody on in a moment like, hey, just go over there and watch that. Don't say anything. Just go over there and watch that and watch what they're doing. Listen to the vocabulary. Listen to how they discuss changes. You know, we'll talk to Kate in a bit and like, look at people moving shit on set, to teammates of mine that have been very free to be like, oh, I just need to go adjust that, whatever it is. No, you don't.
That's the thing is that oftentimes I think like when we're working with celebrities, let's say, I think it can be a really high pressure situation and every word is being listened to by somebody's lawyer or somebody's representation, PR usually. And so when clients just start talking and start throwing things out there like, we could do this, we could do that. I'm like, we're not presenting new ideas.
Right. It's not the time
calls.
for we could. It's the time for here's how we're going to execute what has been.
And that's happened multiple times across multiple clients from younger people. And so what I'm thinking is like, I'm 35. You're
not 35.
Older. And then younger than us.
Yeah.
Like younger than us, I think that there's something about this like, well, I have the degree, so therefore I am entering with a certain level of, I deserve a certain rate or I deserve these things. And it's like, no, you earn that through experience. You don't earn that because of the degree.
You're right.
Our world.
You're right.
In our world.
You're right. And that's my default is always to be like, you know, sit down, young buck. Like just take a beat. But at the same time, I remember me coming up, like I'm 49. So my early days, my very, very first days on set were like 99, 2000, 2001, right? Like total greenhorn. And the idea
What's
that
a greenhorn?
Well, just like a rube, right? Like
what's a rube?
I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm a rookie. I'm trying to find a way to like make a mark or be like contributing or whatever. But my point is, generation after generation does this, right?
Yeah.
Like the young bucks don't know anything. Are they up? And I'm 50-50ing it. I'm saying that I don't want to be that old man shaking my fist at the clouds saying these young kids today. But also, I've worked, you know.
But also those pesky clouds.
I work with people on my team that are 20 years my junior, right? And can feel a sense of entitlement to being like, well, I need to be put on.
That was the word.
Right?
I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But yeah. And on the other side of that, the people that are around me who I've hired that are older, managing them to pick up new skills or work in a new structure or, you know, you can't say certain things. Like there's also like sometimes where experience can be limiting for somebody as they're further along in their career.
It's a rut of comfort.
Yeah. Right? But overall, I value experience. I've been so grateful that people have trusted me to expose me to certain things that gained me that experience. I've been able to learn such lessons, and I appreciate that. And I try to offer that as much as I can. I think that it's difficult because I'm still, I'm not a huge producer, like we're not a huge company. And so I have a certain level of risk that I can take and offer and flexibility. And then there's also just like, nah, I need somebody with experience to execute so that we can move the company forward.
I've seen that in you. Now we'll get back to talking about you so that everybody's more comfortable.
Thank God.
I've seen you put bleep on, and both of those people have responded like very differently. These two people that we both know. One is a little bit more like, well, yeah, you should have, and it's a long overdue. The other person is like, thank you for the opportunity. And I'm always going to be more preferential to the person who's like, thank you for the opportunity.
1,000%.
Right. So I don't think I just want to be like an old man saying, get out of the way. It's, it's for the old heads with experience. I'm just saying that part of that experience is making space and opportunity for the younger set to come up and get that same ability and learn their own bit of it.
Well, and I think that, that's something that's actually lacking a little bit about people who are now professionals or in the career and they are claiming to be experts. And they don't have a variety of experience. They just have like been doing what they do over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so therefore they're billed as an expert in a certain category. And I'm talking about beauty influencers. I'm talking about Kate's a set designer. We're talking about these people who have in our industry and like entertainment and marketing and advertising specific niche talents that they have turned into careers. And it's because they've worked against multiple clients, multiple budgets, like such variety.
Yeah.
And that's where you can tell the difference between somebody who's got that type of experience. And like I said, somebody who's just found their niche on YouTube or become an influencer in a certain category and run that game thousands of times, but never working with different clients, different budgets, different directors or producers.
I know, but it's like and I don't want to get off topic here, but it's like the state of the business too, right? Again, back in my early years, there was this absolute reverence for brand and brand standards and how the brand showed up at every single touch point, right?
Yeah.
This is like pre-digital, even pre-Facebook and everything. And there was like a painstaking standing in like dark rooms and under light boxes and making sure everything was just so, and color retouching done by like hand, like with a what do you call it, a wax pen, right?
I actually think that that's going to come back.
But my point in the meantime, I do too. I think there's always like a desire to put humanity back into things, but we don't learn that until we fucking take it out. And right now we're in the process of like taking it all out. The more we can do through AI, the more we can do through like a touchless environment. I agree. And I hope, because like if we don't have the confidence in human IP and in intelligence put into projects and work of all kinds, and like, what the fuck are we doing? Just programming the machines to like lead our lives? I don't understand.
And then there's also times where I have to like give myself grace of what I do not know, what I have not experienced yet, and what I've yet to be exposed to. And, I can kind of assign a risk level, like pitching yourself for a potential project that you've never experienced before. Okay, but there's some fundamental building blocks here that are the same of what I have experienced. So I feel comfortable to be able to say, I can deliver for you. Or being like, just out of my, like truly, if somebody was like, great, Frank, you can produce the next Marvel movie and we have these stunts. I would be like, the fuck? Like, no, not yet.
There's a limitation. There's a margin.
I hate when people try to jump the gun.
Yes.
I don't like when people misrepresent their experience.
Yes.
I will say that's incredibly annoying.
Yeah.
Not because, girl, get it. I get it. Fake it till you make it, all that kind of stuff. But then like, if it slows me down because you've misrepresented your experience and it slows down my either day on set, or if it slows down my career or what I'm trying to achieve because you said, hey, I could do this with you. I don't like that.
Well, and regardless of what category you work in, what industry you work in, it's an insult to the person who's taken the time to learn the thing that somebody else just is trying to jump the line and be like, and there's a certain amount of fake it till you make it, but like within the realm of like, I have this skill, extrapolated a little bit, I can accomplish this, right? Like I've led teams of 10 people, I can lead teams of 90 people or something like that, right? That's just an extrapolation and an elevation of a skill that I've already been applying. But like when you're just like, I don't know how to do that. And like, you're like, I'll figure it out. You're fucking everybody over.
Yeah. Wild. Well, let's talk with our lovely guest so that she can share her
Speaking of experience,
wealth of knowledge and experience.
Yeah.
She like milked the budget. She like traveled.
What was the budget?
I don't know. Like her dad gave her the equivalent of her rent, which I think was like $600 a month, and I gave her.
Okay,
like,
that's not. Yeah, that's tight. You got to be crafty on $600 a month.
A Gold American Express. That was her. But she had a limit she could spend on it.
Oh, she's got TV money now.
No.
She got TV money now, honey.
I don't speak negativity into the universe. I have so much money. So much money. I have so much money. Anyway.
Miss Kate Martindale.
Hi.
TV's Kate Martindale. I'm so excited you're here.
You know what? I love doing podcasts.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're so fun.
Yeah, I think we're kind of onto something. We love doing it.
Yeah.
And despite Bill's disinterest in watching it. I'm obsessed with it. This is what we talk about regularly. Like whether there were cameras or lights, like we would have these conversations anyway. So we were like, why not monetize it?
Yeah.
You know?
I like it. I think when you purposely talk about something, though, you really get to it because then you have this intent.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying. But by the way, this is all anybody's talking about right now.
Yeah.
Living in Los Angeles.
Right.
We are all in this, like, I kind of want to call it a K-hole, but none of us are on ketamine. It just feels that way.
When did that start, though? Because I am fascinated by all this because we see it here, like all the changing of the industry. But was that pre-strike? Was that still a topic?
No. The strike was the big thing.
Yes.
And people, like my mom, like people who don't know or don't live in LA, they're like, how did the strike affect you? But it's all about advertising, right? I mean, I like to say I'm a stylist, but really what I'm in is advertising. I'm in the advertising business.
Sure.
When the writers and the actors both went on strike, and I understand why they did it, but I wonder if they could have foreseen the effects that this was really going to have on the industry if they would have maybe thought a little bit harder about this.
Well, it's a bitch because they needed to get what they got, writers and performers, and IATSE needs to get what they need for the crew. But if one strikes, everybody goes out of work. Like if actors can't come on set or if writers don't go on set, then all the rest. And I don't know if they thought as expansive of the ripple effect into all the crew members down the call sheet.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think they did. And I do think that everybody sort of thought, like they had this responsibility. If we don't do it, then everybody's going to pay the price. I mean, I'm just really in the print world and the commercial world, but everybody in our world talks about AI. And there are already companies that I worked for on a regular that are using AI to create.
Like whole video productions are now being done by,
you're just kind of like, wow, like I have so many thoughts about it. I can't even process it.
Well, let's start with this. So this episode is actually revealing itself to be more about the value of experience is what we've kind of come to.
I love that.
Yeah. And so we're going to dance around that topic this entire time. But essentially, people hire you like it's either art directing, set design, or being a prop stylist. So there's different terms. So can you clarify like what are the different categories of the work that you do and who hires you for each of those categories?
Oh gosh. Okay. How do you eat an elephant? First of all, I've done this for almost 30 years.
Yeah.
I got into this business in my 20s, which it was, Polaroids and, cameras with 4x5. There was no digital, which I am so grateful for. It really taught me to be a much different stylist than stylists are learning now.
Incredibly intentional.
It's so intentional. And it was really, a craft because you had to get it right. There was no Photoshop. Prop styling is, I would say probably the most creative part of what I do. And within that umbrella of prop styling, it's like I do beds and I do some food and I do some wardrobe. And, it's really funny. You learn to wear a lot of hats. Art direction is kind of like where it starts. So if you kind of visualize a triangle, an art director, creative director is sort of in that little top, tiny little part of the triangle where they kind of create. And then it trickles down onto everything else. And then, the art director has that conversation with the client and, and then photographer. And then I'm kind of always down at the bottom, which has never really bothered me, but that's the truth. You know, my job is kind of at the bottom.
If you're being hired as a prop stylist or a set designer, but you now in your career, you've grown to also take on art direction.
Yeah, I do art direction. I even do some creative direction where I actually concept what someone's trying to do more than direct it.
Right.
So I always go back to that roots, I guess, of like, I'm a prop stylist. No matter what I do as an interior decorator, you know, as whatever I do, it always comes from my prop styling brain first. I can't help it.
And what was your early day clients? Were you in fashion? Were you in consumer goods?
My first, I was actually did an internship at a large catalog house in Atlanta. And I caught on to being a stylist so quickly that I quickly advanced to an assistant.
Yeah.
I got married, moved away, got divorced.
In your early 20s?
I was 25.
My God, teen bride.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I got married at 25. And at 25 and a half, realized it was a big mistake.
Sure.
I was like, what am I doing? Why did I do that? I like him, but not that much. No joke. Like 4 months later, I asked for a divorce. And he's a great guy. He's an amazing person, but not for me. I went back kind of with my tail between my legs to this like catalog house. And I was like, I really want to do this. And this is where my life needs to go. And they were like, okay. But I'd already gotten so into it that they were like, can you just be a stylist? It was the craziest thing ever. And I think my day rate as an assistant was like, I don't know, like $80 a day.
Oh my God.
And my styling rate, my freelance styling rate went up to like $150 a day.
Yeah.
I was like,
it's almost double.
Yeah, I was like, I was like
drinks on cake.
Right?
Yeah.
I was like throwing my hair back as I walked out of her office. Yes. So a year later, I worked at this catalog house where I got to style everything. I learned everything because they had every client, but their big client was Bloomingdale's. A year later, they promoted me. They kept offering me a full-time stylist position so they could pay me, again, $70, a day or whatever. And I turned it down because I was like, why would I go full-time? I'm like killing it as a freelancer. And they brought me into the office and surprised me and offered me an art director's position. And I was like, what? And it was a lot more money. I said yes. And the other art directors who had been my friends and my mentors, and I loved them, they did a walkout in protest.
Oh my God,
that seems
drama. You're the drama.
They literally like created a walkout and
that's
protested.
So chic, Kate. No, like that's so
I was
good.
like, wait, what? Over me? I could not wrap my brain around it.
Is that because at the moment they felt you, in their opinion, your
Just gonna
estimation, like you didn't have the experience, the skill?
Everything.
So
Everything.
they felt personally assaulted.
Personally assaulted. They thought it was a joke. I mean, truth be told, I had always gotten along with the creative director of this company and the woman below her, but they just saw something in me. And I think the biggest thing they saw was that I was literally willing to do anything to do this job. Like I had cleaned out maggots out of refrigerators in the sweltering Atlanta heat when I was interning or even assisting. If they said run out 10 times to a grocery store, like, oh, I forgot a lime, I'd be like, I've got it.
Yeah.
Like,
and then you get to the point where after a little while you start to, I got limes with me because I know that you're going to forget stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, but you only can get there with experience.
Yeah.
And I think like that is so gone. We were just talking on the intro about like, I'm 35, Bill's 49. The younger are like, they want to skip the experience part of their careers and jump right into a comfy, cozy rate. And I'm like, you gotta earn that shit.
Gonna say something I can't believe I'm ever gonna say. It's almost not their fault. As a client, if you take less, you're going to get less.
Yeah.
And so many clients have decided to go this route of, oh, you're an influencer. You've got millions of followers.
We'll buy your audience very
We'll
quickly.
buy your audience and use you. So it's kind of allowed them to not work for it. And it's kind of allowed them to not care about the experience.
How has that impacted you? Like, does that in any way benefit you?
Honestly, I don't pay attention to them.
Yeah.
They don't do what I do.
Yeah.
Right.
And
are you being put up into the same type of gigs as they are?
No.
Okay.
No. You know, I shoot a lot for Amazon and I do all of their social media, and they still hire influencers to do it, but they still value what I do.
Yeah.
That's great.
And for a long time, I just was like, oh, Amazon, like I believe in small stores. I source in small stores, but I've actually really come to respect the company in a lot of ways
Good.
because they do respect a trained photographer, a trained stylist, a crew.
Yeah.
They really are like, hey, there's this side of it which we'll take, and then there's this side of it which we'll take. And they've learned that they can control some of it and they can't control some of it. And they just kind of throw it all in this bag and see how it's going to work.
Two things. First, we've talked about this before, where the concept of like, I'm a loyalist when it comes to crew people. Like, we've worked on many things together because I'm like, she knows her shit. She's adaptable. She can execute against creative. She's going to be a delight on set. Not to flatter you too much, but
oh gosh.
I know I do enjoy working with you, but I do that with like, if I find somebody good, you lock in. And these clients are so lately like new. We want a brand new. We want to try something new. And like, I'm like, you're losing the ease on set. You're losing the flow and the energy when we keep bringing in new people all the time. And you're also having to re-educate somebody about your brand's aesthetic every time.
Yeah.
And you're taking risk. It's too much risk.
It is, but I think that's an incomplete view of, I can defend the brand side to say that we are getting it can't be the same. It's got to deliver more. It's got to reach a different audience.
But people with great experience can execute different creative.
Yeah. Well, that's why we continue to work together.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that somebody who's somebody who's thinking otherwise from myself might just be like, get me a new fucking crew who can do a new thing, because the old crew is not what is making my seniors happy.
I can understand that.
I just think that brands are floundering right now. And when you flounder, I think that it's a very weird retail market right now. And to bring in another element that we can all regurgitate on, it's COVID. Because everybody went into COVID, everybody went into lockdown, and you went into lockdown with a fuck ton of money. And then everybody came out of COVID and they had all this money and they were like, it was like people running through the streets, like, you get $1, you get $1. And brands were like, oh my God, this is so easy. We're making money.
The artificial bump.
Our brand is doing so well. And then everybody ran out of money.
Consumers,
and not only did we run out of money, but the economy got weird. Nobody's saying it, but things just suck right now.
I think it's fucking terrible.
I mean, people are saying it, but I don't know.
It's a hard time for the consumer, but it's also a hard time for people like us. Like, I know that we keep getting these job reports coming out of like lowest employment rate ever, but it's like, those are not our types of jobs.
That's right. It's a wonderful thing that shouldn't be discounted, but like the lower end of the work spectrum, I'm talking like hourly wage, has increased, and that's great.
Correct.
That is wonderful and shouldn't be touched. But like entire sectors of business, like direct-to-consumer brands that we're talking about, which during COVID was like, oh shit, I can just do this from my computer and get food or cat food or whatever the fuck, right? That worked. And these businesses got huge bumps during that time. And then what happened is ultimately many of them have proven they can't be profitable.
Yeah.
They can be acquisition whores. They can give all their money to Facebook to get you to sign on and become a subscriber, but they can't keep you and they can't turn it into a profit. The Warby Parkers of the world, right? That are still, I think, to this day, pre-profit.
What was it I was reading about Reddit? It's like not profitable.
Yeah.
It's like you hear things like that and you're like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
But I do think that brands as a whole, like, and again, back to the floundering thing, it's like, do I use an influencer or do I do a shoot? And they all they want is to be successful.
The audience, what's the first thing to go in this equation from the brand side is any bit of like integrity to detail and making sure we have just the right people setting just the right scene. They're like, pump this out and move it along, and it's got to move some widgets like tomorrow.
Yes, but I feel like in this time of uncertainty, don't you want to hire a bunch of experienced people who can help guide you, because they know, put your product into this shot, it'll help move product.
Who is?
Like, that's what you do.
Kate, in this day, like, and you don't need to be specific if you don't want to, but like, what are some of the types of brands that are still investing in good experience and your book?
I would say most of my clients are still there, but on a smaller scale, on smaller budgets and on smaller scales. But one thing I just want to say to something that you said, and kind of this theme of experience. Somebody said to me recently, the difference between having a stylist on set or not a stylist on set is the ability to pivot and to think on your feet. So we all know you do a shoot and something doesn't go right, or
Inevitably.
inevitably something goes wrong, and you've spent a
Never
lot.
on my projects. Never.
Right? No,
ever.
you're perfect.
Thank you.
We all know you're perfect. Whatever.
Appreciate that.
Yes, I mean, in every way. But it's that ability to pivot.
Yeah.
What I think a lot of influencers, I think the difference between them and say maybe a stylist, and even some stylists have gotten this way because there's a payoff. I don't know. I feel like they're just safe. I feel like everything sort of looks the same because there's a formula.
Yes. Yeah.
And they all realize like, oh, if I follow this formula, then brands will reach out. I'll make some money.
Yeah.
I'll get a bunch of free stuff and post it. And then I've done my job.
It's
and
the
sort of
homogenization.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so what I find when I look at someone's social page, a brand, it starts to all really look the same. And what I love about being a stylist, and what I think so many of my friends who are stylists that are really talented people, and what they do is they think outside the box because they were trained to. We are trained to be given a creative brief, look at it and go, okay, that's cool. I get it. But I'm going to push it a little bit, or I'm going to suggest something different,
Totally.
or I'm going to do my own interpretation of what the art director. And that's when an art director and a company really keeps using you as a stylist, because you're a piece of a puzzle that creates a really beautiful picture. And if you don't bring anything to that puzzle, if you're just sort of like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to do what feels that, what you've given me, then you're actually not really doing your job.
Well, so one time I was on set and a makeup artist we were having a similar conversation, and he said to me, the difference between me and these younger influencers that are trying to get the same jobs that I'm getting is that I've had the privilege of touching 1,000 faces once. They've touched one face 1,000 times. And that really clicked for me of like, oh yeah, shit, your experience and understanding for, in his world, color palettes, different textures of skin, all of the variety of his experience versus some influencer who, like you said, it's formulaic. They do their thing very well. I think there's room for both, but I don't like when people get kind of misused. And if influencers get brought on to do something that you can do, versus if you try to get on in there and be like, I love this product, and buy, it's not, that's not really what your expertise is in, that you can bring to a client to move the needle forward for them.
Yeah. I mean, I just think, I've done this for so long now that I even surprise myself. When I go and I'm prepping a job, and one example, I'm at the Flower Mart, right? And
you love a flower mart.
Yeah.
Oh, all
if you
day
follow
long.
you on social media, the flower photos are unreal.
It never gets old to me. Thank God, because it's such a huge part of what I do.
Yeah.
And it's a huge part of why people come to me. But, it's like I was at the Flower Mart earlier this week, and something caught my eye that I would have never, ever, that wasn't in part of a creative or anything. And I listen to that, like I really pay attention to that when I kind of stop and I'm like, I wonder, and it's in my budget and I know I can afford it, I know I can do it. I pick it up, I grab it, and I take it with me. 9 times out of 10, that is the thing that like makes the shoot.
Yeah.
But I couldn't train somebody to do that. I could not, I've often thought about maybe I'll start teaching people how to be a stylist, because there's no school to go to. You have to assist. You have to experience it, right?
You have one of those jobs that you learn via apprenticeship. You can't go to college.
You can't go to college for this.
Yeah.
I mean,
where does it come from? I was going to ask you this earlier because like it's great taste, right? And it more broad than that too, I'm sure. But like, where does it come from?
One, I never wanted to be in an office.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah.
Same.
I went to college to be a graphic designer.
Yeah.
I graduated, and I can remember like 2 weeks before I was graduating, working on my portfolio, just being in absolute tears because I was like, this is the most fucking boring thing.
Yeah.
And my first job out of college, because the styling thing hadn't fully, I was like, I interned, and it wasn't like I, wasn't making enough money. I was designing blankets that had states on them. So it'd be the state of California, and I'd have to put like all the things.
The bear and the mountain.
On a blanket.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, I was terrible at it.
Really?
I was horrible at it. I literally faked my way through.
Okay.
Like I would pretend like my boss would walk by and I'd click on the keyboard because I really didn't know how to do this. And I thought it was actually the stupidest thing I've
Yeah,
ever
it
heard
sounds
of.
it.
And my girlfriend, who graduated from school with me, who was this insane illustrator, she is the one that got me the job. And she's sitting there and she's designing away on this rug and like making, and they just were like, Amy, you're fabulous, you know? And I'm like faking it and like just trying to not fall asleep. So I knew that I didn't want to do that. And I had already had a taste of being a stylist. And I was like, I want to do it so bad. It's so me. There was like music playing on set. People were like goofing off.
God, the vibe.
You'd go
love
to
that vibe.
lunches and people would like sneak drinks at lunch. You know, I'm like,
This is sounding pretty great so far.
I was like, these are my people.
Yeah,
like the
right,
people
right.
who like after work, we'd
Yeah.
all go hang out. It was like photographers, stylists, and assistant and art directors. And I was like, this is my
Yeah.
tribe. And so for me, I think, like, where does it come from? It was fun. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is what I just knew that it was what
Yeah.
I wanted to do.
Right.
That's how I got the internship. You know, I was the first intern stylist they had ever hired. And in my interview, I was like, I will do anything. Anything. And they were like, anything? They're like, you know, it doesn't pay. I'm like, cool. You don't have to give me money.
That is so gone.
I'm like, I
that
just
does
want to
not happen
learn.
anymore.
I'm like, if I'm here, I'm learning.
Yeah.
And I will eventually make money at this. And I was doing 2 jobs at the time. I was the district manager for Aeropostale for their visuals. So I created all of the visuals in all of the Atlanta stores, which again, nobody could believe I got this job.
Right.
But I did it because I was folding t-shirts one day, bored out of my mind, and I went into the stock room and I stole all of the office supplies and I created visuals out of all of the office supplies.
Yeah.
And the next morning, everybody came in, they're like, this is amazing. Who did this? And I was like, oh, I was bored. And the manager came in and was like, you're going to start doing
bored.
all the
Keep doing all
visuals.
this.
All the visuals for all the stores.
So you work mainly in commercials and print, you said.
Yep.
What's your process like when you meet a client and they tell you the creative? That's usually probably already established before somebody finds you. But then how do you start your job, like logistically and creatively?
Logistically, it always comes with a phone call. Well, first I get my agent on the phone. No. I'm actually don't have an agent anymore.
I was going to see how you were going to land that one.
Right.
But I've been on those calls where we were pitching creative to Kate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we're like,
yeah.
we think we want this. We think it should look like that. We're going for this type of mood and aesthetic. And you're like, I got it. Just leave it with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, experience, right? If you asked me this question 25 years ago, I would have answered it I'd be like Bambi, you know, trying to walk.
Right.
And now I'm like, you know, whatever.
It's like, what's the budget?
Exactly.
It's like, how many days?
I'm like the
travel?
woman on Friends,
How many
Joey's
assistants? Yeah, you're Estelle.
Estelle. No, but you know, it's just like you get the creative and then you put your own spin on it.
Yeah.
And that's what people count on. And honestly, I don't overthink it anymore.
Yeah. I was going to say,
just
otherwise
don't.
the pressure of like, hey, Kate, you're responsible for helping us create a world where we can either display our brand or create the brand's world. That would feel overwhelming. I mean, I'm assuming you're always like trying to do what's best for the client. It's a great responsibility.
It's huge. It's huge because bottom line of everything in this world is money. And, you know, the bottom line is you're spending a lot of money on this shoot. And yeah, I'm this part. I mean, you know, my worst nightmare is they're like, hey, do you have and they describe something, and I'm
God.
like, and I've got 5 tables filled with props,
Yes.
and they ask me for the one thing I don't
you don't
have.
have. Yeah.
Like, do you think your assistant could run out and get that? I mean, it happens no matter what.
Yeah.
And I actually still get nervous about going on set. Like, you know, a shoot.
Really?
Yes, it's the weirdest thing. My mom's like, that's what keeps you good at your job. And I'm like, really?
Right.
I think it's what makes me neurotic. But anyway, so it's just one of those things where unless it's a client that knows me really well and knows that I'm going to bring my A game every time.
Do you have some clients that haven't passed you the baton of like, I just trust your creativity?
Oh,
and
yeah.
like, because I recently went through a project where I was serving multiple design masters at once. And I was like, you guys need to collectively get on the same page about your taste and about the direction before we try to execute your vision, and your vision, and somehow combine
That's
them.
like working in a brand. That's what in a brand is. It's like 8 executives telling you what's cool and what should look
It's
good.
That's my worst
exhausting.
nightmare. That's my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
I've had to have producers go to the client in the middle of a shoot and make them all agree on something because they pretend and then they get on set and they're still all fighting.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they're all trying to prove their worth and their job. And
Yeah,
so
everyone
they're
wants their
like,
fingerprints on the, I did that, I
Exactly.
chose that, I did that.
Yeah.
exactly.
And then the second that somebody pops in a new idea on set of like, oh, did you not have the
But we
cutie
talked,
oranges?
you and I talked
you're like,
about that
fuck.
in the upfront. We talked about some of the value and experience is also making room for the up and comers in the next generation. I'm curious, do you have somebody that you've sort of put on to like shadow you?
People must ask you all the time, like, hey,
Yeah.
can I come work with you?
I get a lot of DMs.
Yeah.
A lot of DMs. Some email, I like the emails better
Yeah.
than the DMs, but
Calm it down, Frank. Calm it down.
I'm sorry, I just get so excited.
Can
I
you
send her
quit blowing me
DMs.
up? Can you quit blowing me up?
Well, if you'd fucking
You know
respond.
we're friends.
How would you feel about
blocked you.
that? How would you feel about mentoring?
Blocked. I'm always kind of in that mode of teaching. I love the teaching and I would mentor somebody. I have to say I've had assistants that I thought I was mentoring
Yeah.
and they didn't really get they kind of get upset about something that's really lame. And I'm like,
Dude.
You've been working
Yeah.
for me for 2 years. I've like introduced you to my clients and gave you all my resources. And like, I mean, this is where I get into the bitching part of the podcast. Like, I am shocked at the level of
Ingratitude.
ingratitude. I'm just like,
I think we all
I'm
have
like,
a story around that, right?
wow.
Yeah.
I'm like,
It's wild.
it's literally like birthing a baby and the baby at like, you
Yeah.
know, 1 minute old going,
Yeah.
thanks for carrying me for 9 months, but
Yeah.
I'm out.
I've had to really tighten the leash because I have been burnt by that so many times.
I've been burnt so many times that I've actually stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Like, I have
and see, that's the
assistants-
problem. That is like, it's so disheartening to hear that because we've all shared that, like, it's because somebody gave us a shot. Somebody saw something in us and
Yeah.
gave us an opportunity.
Yeah.
These younger kids with this attitude, the way that they're entering their careers, and like you said, I hate to be the old guy shaking his fist at the clouds, but it's like, you're forcing us to be this way.
Yeah.
We're cutting ourselves off from giving you opportunities and exposure because you're mistreating it.
Yeah.
Doesn't every generation feel this?
I
though?
hope so.
Like I'm
I hope
with
so.
you. I'm
No,
with
I don't
you.
think I don't think that generation's gonna I think they're no,
Yeah.
they're, our brains are trained to work a much different way than their brains are. They have not known a moment without a cell phone.
Yes. Right,
Yeah.
Right.
I know those moments. I
Right.
know having to go to a payphone.
Yeah, we were talking about the analog world in the beginning,
Yes.
like no Photoshop and grease
Yes.
pens and
Yes,
markups.
I mean all of
and-
it. Like
yeah.
I can remember, you know, styling a bed and getting the film back. You
The
take
film.
the film back, yeah. And
Yeah.
you took the bed down and there was a piece of batting showing, and they were like, you have to set the whole thing back up because
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
a piece of batting the size of an inch
Yeah.
that showed, and so I had to recreate the entire bed.
Right.
Now people are like, oh, we got it. Oh, we'll change that
Well,
wall
it's
color.
interesting.
We'll
In post,
change.
yeah.
I recently
Yeah.
worked with the photographer who shot both digital and film, and it was so fun to go and drop
know.
off 36.
Speaking of props,
please.
right?
Speaking of set, please don't look around you. Please don't criticize.
Eyes forward.
This
Kate.
is we don't have advertisers yet, Kate.
boy.
Jesus.
I really want to take you guys to a flea market. It's okay. It's all right. Let's not worry about it.
So it's interesting as somebody who creates the photos that people scroll on social media and love because they're like, oh, that's so beautiful. You are then also forced to consider social media trends and what's happening and how it's shifting.
That's hilarious.
You don't.
No.
Not that you don't consider it, but
I literally
clients
don't
are.
even,
Well,
clients are saying,
Yeah.
what's
trend-
trending? What are we going to lean
or
into? So the
trend
creative is now
finds
more
good
driven
taste.
by social media, but you're like an OG creator of content that starts trends and stuff like that. I just think it's an interesting life cycle for creativity.
So here I'll clarify. I
Sorry.
think about trends every day. I look around, I look at magazines, stores, you know, and by the way, 53 years old, still in this business. You have to be smart about how you stay in this business.
Totally.
So absolutely, I'm looking at trends, I'm paying attention, all of that. But for me, personally, my Instagram, I give zero
Sure.
to what is happening in the outside world. What I love and who I am is what I try to bring to my Instagram. And I used to really get paranoid about it. I'd be like, who cares about what I'm doing? Who, you know, and then I got a TV show. And then,
Oh boy, did you get a
Yeah.
TV show?
Right? And then-
can
And
we
then
talk
everybody
about the
cares.
TV show?
And everybody cares. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So capturing home, You've done 2 seasons to date.
Yep.
And you started off on Magnolia Network, and then obviously through negotiations and stuff like that, it's like all Warner Brothers, or
No,
it was during
so-
that merge?
Do you mind to take you to the birth of it
Yeah,
really quick?
please,
Okay, so
please.
very quickly, Amy Neinsinger, who is
Gorgeous,
a photographer.
lovely, talented.
Yes, she's
We've shot
she's-
in her house. We shot in her house in Los Angeles.
her
one
house
time.
is the most shot at house in
Yeah.
Oh,
LA.
really?
Yes.
It's beautiful. She's
Okay.
incredibly smart on so many levels, and she'll love that I'm saying this. Please don't edit this part out.
We'll clip it. We'll put this on
right,
social, so she'll
right.
repost.
Her and I shot all of Joanna Gaines's books, and we had a really good time doing it. And Joanna Gaines was like, "You guys need a show," because of course she was creating Magnolia Network at the time. We did 2 seasons. Not sure why we don't have a 3rd season, but we will. We're definitely making this show again because people really, really, really love it. And
Good.
I mean, we have so much fun when we do it. But that's how it basically started.
Yeah. Who
And-
came up with
and-
the idea of what it actually was?
Amy and I. It's basically our life.
Yeah.
It's what we do.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so successful, because we're not in there pretending at all.
And but the combination, you get the good story of the humanity effort, who the people are in the room, and the inspiration of what they're trying to achieve or how they're trying to live in the space. You come in and you design it, and Amy captures it, and that's how you get capturing.
Well, we
home.
both design it. We're both interior decorators from the beginning all the way through the project. The bonus is that we shoot it
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
end, because then, we style and shoot, and people say this all the time. They're like, your show's not like any other design show. And it's for 2 reasons. One, each one of these families we connected with on a deep level because we saw them as the client. Most decorators see their imprint as the value.
Yeah.
We saw their life as the imprint that we valued.
Cool.
So
That comes across.
when we designed it, we were like, oh, this is how you live, and this is what you love, and so we really wanted to create that home for them, And then the second one is that, yeah, Amy and I kind of looked through the lens at the before and how they, lived, and you're like looking at it, you're like, ooh, this immediately. Amy's big thing was always about the light, which I value just as much. I mean, a sunny day versus a rainy
changer.
day, my mood shifts dramatically. So, and I think everybody can appreciate beautiful light that's streaming in your home. You wake up to or you go to bed to. It's all about that. But that was a beautiful thing that Amy always really paid attention to, was the light coming into a home. And that was through her eye of photography. My specialty was about the details. I was always very caught up in like the beautiful teacup or the beautiful plate. And so, together, as we married that into a show, I think
really worked.
I think it brought soul into everybody's home.
Yeah, it really worked.
Between those 2 things.
For each of those families, was it different or the same to the way that you would approach a commercial job, like a project for that family, even though it's around a whole TV show?
It was a lot of the same, except a commercial job. You put it up, you shoot, you take it down.
Yeah.
This was
They
permanent.
have to live in it. Yeah.
You have to live in it. We made sure that handles actually worked, doorknobs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Functioning.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
We would be at a
Right,
flea market and we're like, oh, we love that. And we're like, it's kind of a piece of crap. All right.
Right.
We
Yeah.
can't really. Or there were times that we did buy things because they were beautiful, put them
Yeah.
in the home, and then realized we had to switch them out because they weren't going to work.
And there's
because-
been times where on set, we've erected entire living rooms, houses, dining rooms together. And Kate will be like, that drawer doesn't open. That refrigerator is not plugged in. Like
Right.
these things
Right.
don't have to work.
Right.
They
Yeah.
just have to look good. But when it's
Yeah.
somebody's home, that shit's got to be plugging
It's
in.
no
and
longer
working.
Yes.
propping. It's living.
Yes.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's a massive difference. That
Oh,
is
yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
first
Well, with the
house
budget,
we did.
even with the budget.
Oh,
Plumbing,
yeah.
electric. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah. Amy and I basically were like jugglers, and it's just all these balls in the air.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about having a partner and doing this together was like when one of us would kind of start to drop a ball, the other one was able to kind of then maybe grab it and juggle it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And we both have our gifts and our specialty, but the combination of us is age and experience.
That's how I feel about this
Yeah.
one over here.
You're the
Yeah.
ball juggler between
It's
the two of us. Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
the ball juggler.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
But
correct.
you have
That's
the-
my expertise.
It is.
So how
you love to juggle a ball.
talent is talent.
two.
God gives us all our gifts. Tell me about what was it like for you to go from behind the camera to in front of the camera, and how has that affected your career?
Well,
Well,
I wish. You know what I'm going to say? I was nervous about being in front of the camera for about 5 seconds.
Mm.
I kind of always wanted a TV show. I kind of always felt comfortable that way. Like I was the class clown. I used to get up in 3rd or 4th grade and I would do Elvis impersonations in the middle of the class. Like I just was like, are we having fun?
Yeah.
That's what this is about,
Are we
right?
having fun?
Right?
No one's having fun.
No, my mom, I can remember my mom being like, could you quit trying to have fun all the
Yeah.
time? Like, could you just calm down and just get your work done? I'm like, it's so boring. So I actually loved it. I loved making the show. Our crew, when cameras got turned on, Amy and I never were like, frozen or we just kind of did us. The worst part about it was always being mic'd and like talking.
Totally.
And our sound guy would be like, he'd be laughing because Amy and I were talking about
Shit
like
you would say.
the shit we would say. Sometimes we'd be like, Sean and I had sex last night and like blah, 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 And the sound guy would be like, oh God,
ladies,
like,
I
I'm
can
turning
hear
it
you.
off.
Patrick, sorry, Patrick.
Right?
Audio.
Exactly. Or you'd go to the bathroom and you'd forget, you know, that you're mic'd and you're like.
I said to him, I was like, if I just bust into like screaming or talking too loudly or singing, I will try to give you a heads up, but that shit just comes out. So like, apologies, audio.
You forget that you're mic'd, So we always, Goldie, our sound guy, who was just a gem of a human, he protected us. He'd shut it off when he knew, we were like not rolling or whatever.
Good.
But I think Amy and I both really enjoyed it just because we loved to work and we felt like we were doing something that was very genuine to who we are. Behind the camera, I love it too. I think I feel really fortunate to do what I do because I love it. And you can tell that I love it. People, as one thing I've heard consistently over 27 years, you really love what you do. And I'm like, yeah, I do.
Do you have any concerns about like in the very near future? Like, do you think you're going to have to change what you do, how you do it, the frequency with which you do it? Or do you think like, as long as you stay this narrow course, you can still be everything that you always have been?
No, absolutely not. I will absolutely have to change. I knew when Instagram came out and stylists were like, oh, I don't want to worry about Instagram. And I was like, okay, you're going to be left behind.
See ya.
Right.
Things happen for a reason. And I think paying attention to what's going on always. It's kind of even like how you dress.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is one thing I've told people forever. Me going on set and dressing like I don't know, what's current in fashion
is a statement.
Is a killer. It's going to kill your job.
Right.
If you don't know what's happening in the world and you're not constantly adjusting with it, but your job is about being somebody who knows what's going on taste and stuff.
You've always had great set
People aren't going to trust you anymore.
Yeah.
So you constantly have to, as a 53-year-old woman, I'm like, all right, what's my daughter wearing? And I'm like, Bella, can you please?
Yeah.
And she's in fashion school, so I'm like, can you dress me, please?
Shout out to Bella.
And that's one thing I was going to say. My daughter cares. You said something earlier about experience and, my daughter actually has had multiple internships. She really respects learning through people like me. She even watches me because it's almost like fast fashion or fast education.
Right.
A well-earned education is what she actually understands.
Yeah.
Will have you actually doing the job you want.
Right.
It's the standout.
Maybe because she is your daughter.
Well, I do think that's part of it.
Yeah, like growing up and seeing you.
I've drilled.
I think that though there's also this myth of like, if only I had a TV show, then I would have all my problems solved and it will open up all these doors. What's the alternative to that? Like, what has your experience been? How has the show actually impacted your bottom line as a business owner, like as a freelancer?
The show it hasn't impacted it as much as I thought it would, but I think that's my fault. I take responsibility for that.
Too high of expectation of what I was going to do.
No. I think that I just don't feel comfortable capitalizing on something that I could have taken a much bigger, and in some ways I have, like people trust me now differently in a way. Amy and I do all these consultations, design consultations, and we got that because of the show for sure, because you have proof of concept.
Yeah.
And people can watch it and they're like, I want my house to look like that, and how we
Yeah.
create homes. So that's brought Amy and I into this big interior design world, which is sort of like, to answer your question, how I'm changing, how my career
pivoting
is changing, how I'm pivoting. And I'm moving a lot more away from prop styling to now interior decorating. And I kind of love that I have a foot in each one of those worlds. And I may choose eventually to only go into interior designing, but I don't think I'll ever choose just to only be a prop stylist ever again.
Well, it's ironic because, and maybe I'm just the paranoid one talking about this, but like the AI and what it's done to cover is always for the temporary, but not for the long lasting.
Right.
So the interior decorating and living there and living with it
Exactly.
and living through it is like not something that can just be faked.
And you hit the nail on the head, because as a prop stylist, I know my job can be replaced. As an interior decorator, it can't.
Yeah.
Well, and see, this is what's so interesting is that because of your age and experience, people now want the Kate Martindale look. They are coming to you because I want your brand into my home or into my project as a brand. So many people never get to that point in their career where they're creatively having to always execute other people's visions, and they can never, it's like they don't reach the pinnacle of the point of being able to say, you're hiring me because you know what I can do, and I'm not going to change what I do too dramatically. This is what you're going to get when you get me, and people want that now.
Yeah,
I think that's got to be a big change too with the show.
It for sure. I think it's just more people recognizing it.
Yeah.
You know, like I've always been here, and I've done a lot of houses before I ever had a show. I was always asked to do interiors, and I did it, but now there's this recognition because of the show, which is
Thank God. I mean,
it's
earned
nice.
that. You've earned that.
Oh God. I said to my husband the other day about something. I was like, oh, I'm paying my dues. He's like,
Paying your dues.
he's like, you paid your dues 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's correct.
Can you quit saying that now? And I was like, oh God, why did I say that? Like, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm ever going to sort of give up that idea in my head that I'm always still sort of trying to prove myself, but it's probably not to the world. It's probably to me.
Which keeps you great, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I don't ever want to lose that touch of being hungry and pushing myself out of the boundaries of what I know I can do creatively.
Yeah.
Any dream projects on the horizon, or not even that are already in play, but like what would be your biggest, like, oh, I want to do that?
Honestly, I would really love to have another show where it's more on our terms.
Yeah.
You know, because I think Amy and I have a lot more to give. And I think it's going to happen. I actually really do think it's going to happen. A lot of people are very interested. But dream project, if I'm being honest, the thing I think about nonstop is leaving America.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not kidding.
No.
My 3-year plan is to move to Italy.
Yeah.
I have a son who's still in high school, and I think the last year of high school that he's here, I'm going to start selling all my stuff.
First dibs. I call first dibs.
Yeah. Bella's going to decide what goes into storage because she cares.
That's crazy.
And my husband said this. My husband's like, let's just start selling everything. And the day that my son graduates from high school, the next day, and I've told all the important people in my world.
I hate to burst your
people,
bubble,
right?
but I think you got too much work ahead of you in the States still. I
can always
think
fly back
you're in
and
demand,
live-
hon.
Yeah, you can always fly back.
fly back and live in a very nice, non-confrontational.
There's just something about, like, you live in a big city like Los Angeles, you know, New York. Like, there's something about the grind, and I am so grateful. I'm so grateful. I don't ever want to sound like I'm not, like, incredibly grateful for living in cities where you get to have big ideas.
Same.
You know, big ideas, like, and you have all the resources to create big ideas and to make beautiful pictures and to have a successful career. But I'm kind of ready to hide.
Okay.
I'm kind of ready to, like, go in and have the second stage of my life where I'm really decide what I want.
Yeah.
And create for what I want, for even if it's for a minute, even if I'm there and I'm bored in 3 years and I'm like, oh, I'm so bored with Italy, or, you know.
For
and
what
come
it's
back.
worth, I see that as the ultimate sign of security. That you are, like, so comfortable in
nice.
your own skin.
Yeah.
That you're no longer always needing to prove to the next client, the next business, the next whatever it is. I think that's a great spot to be in.
That's
And you've
lovely.
earned that. You've absolutely fucking earned that.
I just think that there's something about taking a minute and pausing. I don't ever think I'm not going to work. I don't have this illusion that I'm ever going to, I don't think I would be happy not working.
Right.
I love to have purpose and to create and to even be relevant on some level. But I think sometimes it takes a minute to kind of step back, reevaluate, what have I been doing all these years? And then kind of say, what do I want for the next phase of my life? You know?
Speaking of, like, what other things should we turn people on to that you're working on right now? I heard podcast.
Yeah. Amy and I have done our first podcast. It's called House Calls.
Oh,
cute.
Yeah. It's really about allowing people to kind of vent about where they live. I think the thing that we found, and especially another, COVID extraction in life, is that we all came to appreciate our dwellings.
Oh, yeah.
And how important that became. I mean, COVID shifted the whole interior design aspect. It
completely.
It created a whole new bubble that people, now talk about.
It was a period of nesting, right?
Nesting, which I love to do more than anything. And within that, I think that it all became so important where you live. So it's kind of a platform for people to be able to just say, this is why I love my house
now?
or hate it. Not yet.
Okay. So
Not yet.
Tuned.
Soon.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll
we're
keep
gonna
us
have a
posted.
cool lineup
We'll
and
promote that.
yeah.
Yes, I will be a guest. Thank you so much.
Yes. Well, I mean, you're gonna have lots of
listen,
stories.
we're new to this now, so like I'm like learning how much like you need to jump on other people's pods. Like that's a huge part of being a podcast, a part of the podcast community.
Well, A, that, but B, you're in the middle of renovating a new home.
I know.
And that's what I'm more interested in. Like,
well, you're coming out this week.
I'm going to come out. Amy and I are going to come have dinner and come see it. But I think it's just more like, people, have gotten divorced over renovating their houses.
Oh, I understand that completely. I was saying to the guy that I'm dating, I'm like, this process would either break us up or it would absolutely bring us together.
Wait a minute. I didn't know you were dating someone.
We don't have time for that. Thank you so much to Kate Martindale. But truly, though, thank you.
I want scoop. Thank
know.
you.
Yeah,
You guys are awesome.
No,
really
Can we do this like another
I have
hour? Because I
1,000
just
more
love
questions.
talking
I'm
to you
biting my
guys.
tongue right now.
Aw, I
Thank
love
you,
you
thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.